what's up? Oh, my video looks frozen. Nope, there we go. It's good. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the vscode live stream. It's Thursday, right? It's Thursday, right? Yeah, it is. It is Thursday. It took me a minute. Time doesn't matter anymore. It's non-linear. What's up, chat? How's it going? What's up, Cody? How are you? Today, we're going to be talking about GitOps, which is new for you, new for me. Or maybe it's not new for you. It will be exciting either way. And we're going to talk about Kubernetes, which is definitely new for me. But as we always do, let's start off our stream this morning with a throwback TikTok. Go ahead and roll that.
Did you know have a new Spring Boot Getting Started guide with beans and API mapping views and features like live memory graphs? Install the free extension from the marketplace. Next, click on the Spring icon to open up the Spring dashboard. Start your application and you get access to introspection for your beans and also their hierarchy. You can also get access to the URLs for your REST services. The dashboard also gives you access to the memory view, where you can see the heap memory, the non-heap memory, the GC pauses, and the garbage collection.
Very nice. By the way, that was Rory. And Rory will be with us next week to talk about Copilot and accessibility. So you definitely want to tune in for that. It's going to be awesome. Let me see here. Just checking our YouTube stream. Looks like we're still showing as waiting, Peggy, on YouTube for some reason. I don't know. Do we have some sort of a delay there? There's people waiting. I feel terrible. I feel like I should wait until we figure that out before I continue. YouTube's not here. YouTube's not here. Waiting on YouTube. Peggy, do you hear me? We're on YouTube. We are? Okay, it says we're upcoming. YouTube, are you here? We don't need YouTube. It says Twitch. What's up, Twitch? Good to see you. All right. It just says, it doesn't show as like actually streaming for me, Peggy. It just says upcoming. So I don't know what's going on there. Anyway, thanks for being here, everybody. Good to see you. I guess we'll continue knowing that. Oh, we can see. Okay, good. What's up, Stacy? Look, you are here. What's up, Justin? What's up, Stacy? Listen, I don't know how technology works. Okay, clearly, or YouTube for that matter. All right. Thanks for being here, everybody. We have ironed everything out. Listen, today we are going to talk about GitOps, Kubernetes. We've got a fantastic guest. Our partner Weaveworks is here. And they're doing some very cool stuff. Yeah, I don't know how time zones work either. I'm with you. And plus, we just had the time change, which, by the way, I took a trip last week, and my wife informed me that the flight was at 5 a.m., right? So you have to get up at, 3:30 to make that flight. But then she also informed me that the time was changing on Sunday night. So I actually had to get up at 2:30 to take that flight, which is the worst flight I've ever taken in my life. But this stream is not about my shenanigans. It's about GitOps and Weaveworks. We're glad to have them with us. And yeah, let's go ahead and roll that intro video and we'll bring them on.
More and more, companies are seeing the business benefits of moving to cloud native and adopting Kubernetes. But that can often mean a long learning curve even for app developers. What if you could deploy directly from VS Code and be compliant with your platform team's needs to use Kubernetes, GitOps, policies, canary deployments, and more? And what if you could do that with little to no knowledge of Kubernetes and GitOps? The Weaveworks team that maintains the open source CNCF project Flux have made this possible with the GitOps extension for VS Code. In this session, Kingdon, Tamao, and Juozas will demo an easy way to deploy GitOps from VS Code and show your platform team how to set it up so that you can get back to innovating and improving your apps.
All right. That's a great video. Good job, Peggy. By the way, that was Peggy, our producer, doing the voiceover there. It's quite, I think it's better. That's the best voiceover we've had so far. But yeah, without further ado, let's bring him on. Let's bring on Tamao from Weaveworks to the stream. Talk about GitOps and Kubernetes. There we go.
Oh, can you see me?
Yeah, sorry. I think
that intro cracks me up. My sister actually does those corporate gigs, so when I'm seeing like the stock video,
she does like the video clips, or the
yeah, she's an actor.
Really?
She does those types of like shaking head, you know.
On the like Envato elements and stuff like that. The stock footage, that's what I'm thinking of.
Exactly.
She might be all over YouTube then, right? Because there's like stock footage. Yeah,
that's true. It could be so.
It's awesome.
And also, you told me I was supposed to wear a funny hat, so I brought my flamingo hat because I want to get an acting gig as well, right?
We want to get out of this technology thing, chat, right? Like we're gonna be actors. We deserve to be on the stage. All right. So what are we talking about, Tamao? What are we talking about today? What is GitOps? What is a Kubernetes? Can I have one? Where does one buy a Kubernetes?
Well, you can go to your local corner store and they just have boxes and boxes of Kubernetes that you can get. So actually, yeah, I don't want to like front load so much and overburden everybody. So part of what I'll be showing is exactly how you can execute using all these technologies without needing to be an expert from day one. Because what we're also hearing from people is, all these words, right? Containers, Kubernetes, and we know lots of people in our community who spend 6 to 9 months just building up the knowledge before they feel like they can even use it. And so what we're really excited to show today is the GitOps extension that we created for people in VS Code so that you can actually use all that without being an expert from day one. And then if you want to learn over time, I think that's the best way to learn, right? Is that like, oh, I'm using a thing, I may not fully understand it, but I'm actually still being able to do my job as opposed to like hitting the pause button. So I'll be showing like the 2-minute really short pitch, and then thankfully as the video showed, Kingdon on my team and Juozas on my team will follow me by explaining what's going on under the hood. So my little pitch is to the app developers. I'm assuming many of you are app developers, and maybe you're app developers that you just want to work on building the best apps, and it's gets to be kind of complicated when you have to learn so much infrastructure and terminology and how things work. So I hope that my 2-minute video will get you excited to go tell your infrastructure team, your operations team, your platforms team, however your structure is, and tell them like, please watch the rest of this video. Kingdon and Juozas explain how it works. They'll explain Kubernetes and GitOps, and they'll show you how to set up these templates that we have that make it really easy. Oh, I think you're muted. I don't hear you. Oh, I can't hear you. Maybe I lost my audio.
Unmute.
Oh, there you go.
I think I got muted somehow. I probably muted myself. Kubernetes is cool. All I know about Kubernetes is that it has a manifest. I will agree with you, though, Tamao, that it does feel like as a developer, I feel like before all I had to know was like how to build an app. And now I have to know about containers and orchestration and DevOps and all this other stuff. And it's like the pipelines I understand, right? Like we're automating a lot of things, but as a developer, it's like you have to know more, not less. It's always more. Always more.
It's not scalable. So, Kingdon, Juozas, and I live deeply, deeply in this world of Kubernetes and open source tools that we maintain within the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. And people are literally telling us like, I know not everybody has a platform team, but maybe you have operations or maybe people in IT, right? Where they start out, they're like all excited. They're like, okay, we're going to do this thing like Kubernetes. And, they get to go to the conference or maybe they get trained. And then they realized, okay, I'm going to build this platform internally. And they're like, okay, I got to train my developers on how Kubernetes works. And I have to, give them tech support. And then whatever months in, they come to us and they're like, this is not my job, and yet I'm spending half my time giving talks within the company. I'm trying to
Yeah.
train them, and it's just not scalable. And so I think, you know, a lot of us maybe who were fairly early in this journey are now seeing this. And so thankfully, it gave us these ideas like, okay, we need to build an extension, or we need to build some of these tools so that, you know, the larger organizations and the app developers can do all this stuff but not have to be experts, because it's just not scalable for everybody to have that level of knowledge of Kubernetes, because it's not easy.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's see it. I'm
Okay,
excited
cool.
to see it myself.
All right. So I'm going to slide over to, so this is like a 2-minute recording. You know, thanks everybody for joining. We are so excited to show you our GitOps extension for VS Code. And as I mentioned, our goal here, my 2 minutes of fame, will be talking to the app developers and showing you this wonderful way to do a deployment, never leave VS Code, and yet your deployment could be highly complex. It could be using all these things, Kubernetes containers and all these things that we talked about. But you don't really have to know that, because through the extension, we're also showing these templates that your IT or platform or infrastructure teams can create for you. And in those templates are baked all of the things that they need. So, you know, maybe they have security policies. Maybe they want to make sure that everything that gets deployed through canary deployment so they can roll back if there's a problem. You know, maybe they're having all this technology like Kubernetes and such, but that's all baked in. So all you have to do is grab this template and execute from VS Code, and you're off to the races. You're back to developing your apps. So here I'll show my recording and I'll talk through it. So Juozas and Kingdon will explain a lot of the details that you see here in the background. But essentially here, like I said, your IT or platform team would create a template that has these requirements in it. And on your end, you would grab that template and start the deployment process. Now, the extension we said is called GitOps. And as you might be able to guess, it's operations using Git. And Git is an open source tool created by the person who created Linux. And it does version controlling. And the reason that GitOps has really taken off a lot with infrastructure or platform teams is that, as you can imagine, with a version controlling system, that means the deployments version controlling is tracked. If there's an audit trail that they can show. There's also added automations that can be put in place using this GitOps approach. And if you know Git a little bit, then you probably know like GitHub or GitLab, where with GitHub, you have a pull request, right? So now you can say, I want to deploy, and you deploy in the form of a pull request so that your admin team can look at that, they can approve it, and then merge it. So this is a little bit what you're seeing here. We're also using here the wonderful GitHub extension that's in VS Code. So you can see here, you have never left VS Code. You have kicked off a deployment that uses the GitOps methodology, but you're still within VS Code because we also have the GitHub extension. So basically, when you kick off a deployment, you start the pull request. And in this case, we're going to be our own admins. So we're going to go ahead and merge our own. And so the final part about this GitOps extension that Kingdon and Juozas fantastically built and have been maintaining is once you do the deployment, you get these green check marks all within VS Code so that you know that it was successful. So you get to do the deployment, you get the feedback. And the reason I did the recording here was there's a little bit of delay, but it was seriously like 3-minute delay here from the deployment process. Like I said, it's got so many different things under the hood. It's got the containers and the Kubernetes and all these things that your platform team can set up. And again, with the templates, in this case, we're using these commercial templates to show you the full bells and whistles. But with the templates, they are able to put all the things that they need. Like I said, if they want canary deployments, if they want policies, if they have those things, they will bake that into the template. So all you have to do is grab it. So I hope that for many of you app developers, maybe some of you who are feeling the pain because the word Kubernetes has come up in your company and everybody's trying to train you on stuff, and it just feels like a lot of work. We hope that you will tell your platform or infrastructure teams to watch the rest of this video, because Kingdon and Juozas will explain what just happened here, and explain how to get started. And if you're kind of in the middle, like, you like to learn more, maybe you're a full stack developer, maybe you're on the DevOps side, then please do stick around and watch the rest and ask questions.
Very nice. Well, let's bring Kingdon and Juozas on because I already have some questions. Hey, what's up? How are y'all?
Hello, Berg.
Good.
Good. I see Kingdon's got a hat too. I appreciate that. Effort duly noted. Okay, so just a couple of comments here. Let's see here. Kubernetes, also known as K, it's open source. Yep. For orchestrating containers. Richard says he's really looking forward to this demo. My current mindset is to use IAC. I don't know what that is. What is that?
Infrastructure as code.
And policies within Azure to define what resources can be deployed and how they can be configured. So I guess this is the part that I don't understand. It isn't clear to me. Is that what is that exactly, and how does that work? Like, what is Richard referring to here?
Well, it seems like the general idea is to put your policies, your infrastructure, all that stuff into a declarative definition. And in Kubernetes, we have this concept of declarative definition, but we put definitions into Git so that we have a snapshot of what things are like at a given state in time. And some things are easy, some things are hard to declare in a declarative way. The usual paradigm is imperative. So, that means we're doing things in order. First, we create a cluster, then we put some workload on it, then, we make it exposed to the public, and these things all happen in order. And in Kubernetes, it's kind of turns that paradigm upside down because everything is declarative. So,
gotcha. So in that demo, is that what we're seeing there? A declarative, changing a YAML file and then checking it in, which then kicks off some sort of deployment?
Yes.
Yeah, so go ahead.
It creates a cluster. It creates an entire environment and installs Flux, which is a system for synchronizing resources in Git to the live cluster. So because infrastructure is a code, we treat it completely as code. We can make changes, review them, commit, revert, version, and we get all the benefits that we apply to our app development, but apply it to our infrastructure.
Okay, so this isn't as much about deploying my React app as it is about defining my infrastructure entirely in configuration, putting that into GitHub so that it's versioned, and then I can easily roll back and move between versions and changes in my infrastructure in case something goes wrong or I want to change back. And then it automatically deploys that infrastructure or makes changes to the infrastructure based on my commits to Git. Is that correct?
Exactly.
And is that GitOps?
Well, there's a little bit more to it than that. We've got an app demo because apps are what people are actually focused on, or they probably want to be focused on. And cluster creation is probably one of the hardest examples, which is the other reason we didn't do it live this time. But maybe if we have enough time, we can go over that from the beginning, create the cluster once we're through our actual examples that we prepared for today.
Yeah, sure. Let's get right into that then. I appreciate y'all clarifying for me. As a simple app developer, I don't like the infrastructure is over there, someone else's problem.
Yeah, sure. So I'll show you a simpler demo, and I'll walk through some parts of it, and hopefully it'll be interesting both to people completely new to Kubernetes and people who work with every day. So we're using GitOps tools for Flux extension that has logo. It looks like this. Excuse me 1 second. I'm having some issues with my computer. Okay. So we are using this extension, and we have a lot of clusters, including a management cluster called Howard Space. So we can select this cluster, make it our current cluster, and we can see all the resources. Management cluster has a lot of stuff in it that we'll not talk about, but it has one thing that we'll be using called templates. So it has a simple application template. So we're going to use that template to create an application, and then we'll deploy that application to a cluster that was created in the video, cluster 02. So
okay, so what is, when you say app template, what exactly is the app template? Does it define like defines the container, how much resources it gets, things like that?
It defines that, but in this case, it also defines GitOps configuration for the app. So not only this will deploy the manifest, this template will also set it up so that it's continuously being deployed from Git. So your app is deployed.
So it sets it automatically is enabled for DevOps. DevOps is automatically set up.
Yeah.
Okay.
GitOps is automatically enabled thanks to the template, as well as the app is deployed.
Okay.
So the template is available here in the list of templates. We're showing you off a commercial Weave GitOps Enterprise product. We're discussing open sourcing it, but we're also showing it because for purpose of demonstrating a concept. You can set this up to yourself using open source tools. Just create a template. But we have created templates already. So we'll use the template, and we're going to put it in the Fleet Infra folder. And we fill out information about our app. So this is a resource name. It's hard-coded. And there's the Git repository where our app lives. Our app is a simple web application that just says like hello world and lives in GitHub, Stefan Prodan, pod info.
Okay, so it already exists. It's in a different GitHub repo.
Yeah, it already exists in Git, yeah. And then we'll have a name. We're going to use the master branch. We're going to use default namespace. And then inside the Git repo, there is a folder called Customize that contains the manifests that are the deployment, that are the pods, the container images. This is where our app definition lives in Git, in this folder. So we'll use a template, and the template will create a file, and which cannot, one second. There. And this file was now added to our Fleet Infra folder, which is a folder where all our infrastructure is defined. Our clusters, our apps, everything lives inside this folder. Not the app itself, but the information for deploying the app lives in this folder. So create a new file, default clusters 2, example 01 app. So our template created this file, and this file contains 2 resources for Kubernetes. One resource is a Git repository, and it refers to the pod info Git repository. And every 20 seconds, Flux will check the Git repository for updates. And
okay, so that's what Flux does. Flux glues these things together?
Yes. And it is based on a pull method. So you set an interval. If you have a very large system, maybe 1,000 apps, you don't want to do it every 20 seconds. You can set up a push system where whenever you push something to Git, it will inform Flux, and then it will update immediately. And then it has customization, which will deploy everything in a customized folder. So now we have this stuff, but Flux doesn't know about it because it's not in our Git repository yet. So we will take this, and we will add this change, and then we'll talk create app, and we will commit this. And I'll push this directly to the main branch because this is for an example, it's faster. So now our Fleet infrastructure Git repository knows about our application Git repository, and Flux will reconcile it. Let me show you very quickly the application Git repository. It's called pod info, and it has this folder customize. And inside that customized folder, we have some other resources, HPA, deployment, and service. Deployment is the most interesting one for total Kubernetes newbies because it defines how the app works. It has a spec, and the spec says use this container for GitHub Container Registry, and then it will have these ports, and it will have these options for the app. It also has a service resource which will connect the app, the pod info deployment, to a network service on this port. Okay, so now we have created this Git repository customization, and we have pushed it, and now Flux should reconcile and create these resources inside our cluster 02. So let's connect to cluster 02. And then inside cluster 02, we can see that we have some namespaces, and inside the default namespace is now created a resource called Git repository. that refers to Stefan Prodan Git repository. And in a default namespace is also create a customization that refers to the Git repository customize folder. Now Flux knows about all of this, and it took everything in that folder and put it on a cluster, and then the cluster created all the resources. So now you can see, once it's finished loading, that inside our cluster live, we have a deployment based on the image that we talked about before, this information here. And then we also have a service, which is how it's connected to a network, and has a cluster IP. So now on our cluster, there's a service running. We can go on a web browser. We can go HTTP. And then what was the port? The port was 9898. 89898. And if everything went right,
Hey.
yeah, so a lot of steps to show a web page. But what is happening now is the web page is being continuously updated from Git. We make a change, push it to Git, to Stefan Prodan repository. This will 20 seconds later be updated in our cluster. Flux maintains it in sync.
So where does the cluster run? I guess that doesn't matter, right? It could be in Azure, it could be in AWS, it could be on your own data
this one
center.
is in my home lab, yeah.
Okay, so so then how exactly is it? This is in GitHub, right? It's in a Git repo?
Yes. There are two Git repos.
Using action, what is it using to actually make the changes? Is that where Weaveworks comes in?
Flux copies, Flux clones the repository into the cluster, and it maintains a copy of the clone there, filtered down to only the files that we tell it that we're interested in. So if you have a Git repository that has a giant app and lots of source code in it, we're really only interested in the manifests, right? Because Flux is only deploying the app, and the manifests tell everything that Kubernetes needs. So Flux is first it's doing a clone, and that's what the Git repository resource does. The other resource that we saw is called a customization. This is subscribed to Flux's copy of the Git repository. So every time the Git repository updates, now customization is saying, okay, I have new changes to apply, and it tries, and it's also reconciling on an interval of its own. So if something changes inside the cluster, someone has access that they shouldn't, or they've changed something for testing purposes. Now we want Flux to put it back, because the definition of what's supposed to be on the cluster, the source of truth, is in the Git repository. Does that make sense?
It does. So Flux is running inside the cluster, right? You've installed it, whatever that means, inside the cluster, I assume in a container. But then you're looking at multiple clusters here. So what is sitting above those clusters that lets you, like, if Flux is running in each single one of those and maintaining a copy of that repository, and then when you push to the repository, Flux, I assume, sees the change and then does the rest from there?
Yeah, Flux is very lightweight, so it is okay to install it on every cluster. There is another model where you can install Flux just on one cluster and then have it control all the others. But part of the GitOps model is this poll-based. So you don't actually have to open up a connection from the internet to your cluster. You can allow that cluster to reach out and look for what changes or what definition should it have, and it's just going to pull it in. So this is a more secure model by default.
Ah, got you. So there is no actual external access to the cluster.
Right.
Even
the only
though
GitHub actions
cluster,
that we have, they're building images. That's all they're doing. They're building images and pushing them, and then Flux is watching.
Okay, so we got some questions here. First of all, the most important question. I love you too, Cecil. I miss you, man. Hope to see you again soon. All right, here's an actual question. Is this cluster instantiated on Minikube? See, when we start using words like Minikube, this is where I start to go off the rails, because I don't know what this stuff is.
The audience knows what we're doing here.
They do.
Actually, this is a cluster API cluster. So cluster API is an open source toolkit that is leveraged by Weave GitOps to create clusters declaratively. So there is a cluster resource up there. And we can come back and look at that template, or if you have it now, we can pull it up and see the cluster definition that we actually ran through in the very first, in the video. And that definition, it includes 3 resources. There's one we'll see, it's called GitOps cluster. And this is the hook for Weave GitOps to understand how to GitOps the cluster. So Cluster API is a completely separate tool. It does its own job, supported by other tools. And this is a V cluster. So there is really the answer for people who want to know what are we building on top of. This is cluster, and there's V cluster that supports it. So that's the infrastructure provider. And this is all very complicated, and I'm sure we've lost some people at this point, but hopefully someone's getting something out of this. We do have another example I'd like to show. That's
sure, absolutely
more app focused again here.
Yeah, let's do it.
Here. So let's. I've got. If we can switch the screen shares to mine, I've got this one ready to go. Okay.
Yeah, you're up.
Yeah. So here is a definition for GitOps template, just like the one that was showing. You want to get this a little bigger?
Maximize your VS Code there, yeah.
Yeah, sure. And we can get that out of the way. Probably this out of the way too. So here. All we're really doing with a template in general, like this is the pattern here that we really wanted to show today more than anything, is we can use templates to help our app developers or people who don't know Kubernetes wield the complexity that we want them to have access to. So in this case, there's a lot of choices here, but we've pre-filled all the correct answers. So you just click. So you can see the result of this example. And we've got some options in this one. I'll show a slightly different interface. So we know that we can access templates this way, but with Weave GitOps Enterprise, we get a UI for templates in the browser. So we can access our templates here, and it's very much the same. This is almost exactly the same as what we've just done. So here, this list should look familiar. Here we go, use this template. We get a prompt very similar to the one we saw before. This is selected for us because that's the example I wanted to show today. And we have a pull request workflow that's similar to the one that we use in VS Code, but it's a little bit more streamlined, I guess. It's part of the Weave GitOps product. So what this is doing here is authorizing Weave GitOps to open a pull request on our behalf. So here it's ready to go. And now we're going to create pull request. And this is the big point of GitOps, right? It's not only the single source of truth. It's not only declarative, like those things are great. But what it really gets us is we have code that we can share and have reviewed. So we can look at this and say, all right, this is wrong, or maybe, I don't know, something else is wrong, and then fix it in the pull request before it gets merged. So that's the point of GitOps. But this should work, so we're just going to merge it so we can see what happens. And what this example is going to do, outwardly, it looks like the same example, except it's pointed at a different Git repository. It's pointed at my fork. So this is Kingdon's pod info. And I've done some work in here to make it a little bit simpler. So I know that we said it's a website, but really what it is, it's a microservices example platform. It's really quite complicated under the hood. There's a lot of source code in here. And what I would like to do, if I can find where I'm looking for, I think I want cluster 02.
So while you're pulling that up, Richard's taking a crack at it here. So GitHub Actions provisions infra using YAML on the cloud provider. Then K8s on the cloud provider pulls GH for updates.
Yes.
That is what's happening.
That is what's happening.
Okay.
And the polling, so polling is the easiest thing that we can do. Polling is fine for a small example. But if you're scaling, like really, there are a lot of problems with this first example, right? There's, first of all, we don't have any ingress. There's no way for traffic to get into this cluster. And second of all, we don't have any monitoring. So there's a lot of opportunities that we'd like to make available that are not going to be available because we don't have, all these things that we haven't done yet. So what we do have, though, this example has multiple environments because I think this is probably the first thing that you want to, this is a conversation that you have with your platform team. I know not everyone has a platform team, but hopefully you've at least had the conversation with someone or about, we shouldn't just be deploying straight to production, right? We need to test things before they go live. So, maybe that takes different forms. Flux and Flagger, there's one way that you can test things in production that we actually do recommend, where we have a monitoring set up so that we know how it's going based on KPIs, things that we measure, like how is the response rate? Is it fast? Is it slow? How many errors are we serving up? Has it gone up since the release? And we can do things. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so Kingdon, when you say a platform team, in my mind, you have in a typical setup, you have app developers. If you're lucky, you have a QA department, and then you have what I would call infrastructure, right? And to me, so where does platform fall in that? Now, I've been out of a large enterprise setup for a while, so I'm not sure where it's at today. But to me, this is like an infrastructure thing. Like, this is something our infrastructure team would have done, is configuring all of this stuff, setting up these templates for us as app developers so that we don't have to do this.
Yeah, we've found in a lot of our conversations with people who are using these patterns in their companies that there's sort of a extra layer that you need when you have ops and you have dev, and there's nobody in between. You bottleneck, because devs constantly need support of ops. And ops, you don't want to pay those guys as much as you pay them. You don't want to have so many ops people to support all these devs that you need. Maybe I need 1,000 devs, and maybe I could support them with 10 guys, but I really need, this core infrastructure team of 4 ops guys to focus on infrastructure, not on supporting the devs. So that's what we mean when we say platform team, or at least one.
I gotcha.
What we might mean.
Okay. So in an ideal scenario, I guess that's the way it would go. I guess it just depends on the size, I mean, chat, I don't know about y'all, but when I was doing even in the enterprise, like, I was doing it all. I mean, I was writing SQL, I was fixing all the Fox Pro apps.
Totally understand. Most people aren't going to have access to a platform team. And that's part of what we're talking about today, right? We're trying to help you. We want to be your platform team. We would really like to support you and provide you with that extra help that you need to scale your devs. So I'm just going to show a little workflow here.
Yeah, sure.
Change. So we've got VS Code, and we have to open another window so I can get to pod info, here, projects. All right. Yes, of course I trust them.
Yes, the workspace trust notifications.
All right. I need a terminal for this. And I need to edit a file. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the overlays. So we deployed from this directory customize. This is the simplest version of the manifests. We actually have multiple versions of the manifest in this app repo that live together with the app. So we can define our production environment as part of the app. So we can define, there are different patterns for this. This one maybe isn't for everyone, but I wanted to be able to show a deployment of multiple environments, which we've already done. By the way, I don't know if we noticed what we saw here, but we have 3 environments: staging, production, and I'll put pre-production back here because that's the order.
Okay, that app, the pod app.
Yep. And there's a more advanced
version. Was that part of the template? Sorry, Kingdon. Was that part of the template that it automatically created those 3 environments?
Yeah, the template is here for that. So here are those 3 environments: pre-prod, staging, and the app itself is production. So this points at another one of those overlays. And all 3 of these are exactly the same, except for a few minor variations. So this points at production. And this one also points at production because it's pre-production, but it points at a different source. Let's take a look at those sources real quick. So this is an OCI repository source. It's something that we build from our GitHub Actions as part of our release or part of our testing workflow. So there's different tags that we use as part of the release workflow. And if you saw the CNCF live stream about 6 months ago in August, I think, where we presented OCI as a new feature. We used the same workflow then. So what we're about to see, we're going to do deployment to staging, and then we're going to do a release, and then we're going to approve it to production.
All right.
Yeah, let's do that real quick. So we have time.
I mean, as a developer, I would love to live inside of an environment set up like this.
Yeah, so here you want to see what the production environment actually is composed of. It also has multiple environments that it's composed of. It's got a back end, a front end, and then a Redis cache. And we have this patch so that it's distinguished from the other environments, so we can see this was production. And we've got similar things in here. There's one in here, right? This one says welcome to staging. So the definitions are the same. Everything is going to be the same for these, except for that one label that we've patched. Those definitions come from way up here: bases, front end, deployment. All right, so we're going to change one of the options that we pass, and you'll see why in a second. And I want to commit that to Git. All right.
So you've commented out a variable, I assume, for a logo.
Right. Yes. What is this? No, I don't want to do that. I don't know why I would want to do that. Okay. All right. And I've got some helpers here to make the release workflow smooth. So we're going to do make version set tag equals, I need to know what the current tag is. All right, 6.4.4. So we need a new tag for this.
Okay, so it's like a package.json version. You got to increment it to get
right.
it to.
And you see it's in a bunch of files. That's why we've got this helper here to make it really easy to do this. Just go do, and 6.4.5. Ask me the same question again. And now I think we want to go back to those environments, and we want to see our GitHub action. So it's going to take a minute. So if you fork this, you will need to enable GitHub Actions. If you've ever worked on a forked repo with GitHub Actions before, you probably already know that. The only thing I missed, I actually have to do make release, or we won't see the release. So we'll see staging updating soon because we haven't done a release. Actually, we'll see an error soon because there's no image 6.4.5, and that's all that staging knows. Make release. Here we go. This is what I've done. Make release. So this is doing git tag and git push tag. That's really simple. And then we should see our actual release workflow kicking off. Here we go. Release pod info. So we've got a staging artifact that's pushed. And we should be able to see that error that I was talking about because 6.4.5 doesn't exist. So there are different patterns here, and we're not showing all of the patterns, right? What I want to show here, right, is that definition has a specific, reference to an image in it. We just updated it, and now it's pointed somewhere that doesn't exist. So there's an error, yeah. But
which image pull back off means it ain't running. It's down.
Right. Well, the old version is still running because Kubernetes knows the new version isn't up. So that's nice.
So it's basically telling you the new image didn't get deployed. Right.
But it will keep trying because the definition says it should be there. And there's different ways. If you, I mentioned the CNCF live stream. We were actually on the CNCF live stream last week also, where we showed image update automation, which is a tool that would get you out of this if you really wanted to be deploying fast in dev. But what we're showing is a slightly different pattern because we want to be able to test changes to our manifests that might not be the image. You might want to be able to test something else, see, it hasn't changed the image because the new deployment hasn't rolled out. So even though we're not worried about a new image, the deployment and the image together are kind of bonded as a pair, right? There's no new definition that comes in and starts updating the old deployment pods. That's part of the deployment workflow. So as long as our new deployment isn't ready, we're not going to see any change here. But we should see momentarily This is done pushing an image. What we're going to see, here we go. Build and push is done. So we should see this updating any moment now to the new image deployment and manifests. And what we're going to see after that is it'll also go out to pre-production. So we had some definitions. We'll go back and look at those so we understand why it's going out to pre-production before it goes to production. But
I like how there's staging, pre-production, and production. It's like, are you sure? Staging. Are you sure you're sure? Pre-production.
Yeah. Well, I wanted something so that I had an actual definition of production that I could point to and say, production is running this image. I tell you what image it is, right? I approve that image. That's the image. I don't want to see any other image running until I approve a different image. That's kind of the pattern that I'm going for, because that's the work environment that I came from before I was at Weaveworks. And this does take a minute. See, it is running now. We should see responses coming from the new one as the old one gets shut down. There it is.
Nice. I like that
and
image.
Pre-production is also updated. Okay.
All right.
So
we got a couple questions here. So Osama's asking earlier, if deploying to public cloud, where do the secrets get saved? How do you manage secrets?
there are definitely different answers to that. The enterprise answer that we're pushing at this point is called external secrets, and it has many different backends that you can use. Probably the best answer is a solution like a key management system that actually is managed by your cloud provider, because then you can implement policies around key management. And but the Flux official answer, because we don't endorse or support any official cloud provider other than all cloud providers, equally. The Flux official answer for open source is we use SOPs is the primary solution that we suggest. And in SOPs, you can encrypt your secrets and store them in a Git repo. I say a Git repo, not the Git repo, because even encrypted secrets, you should consider who should have access to the encrypted secrets. It's probably a different set of people than who should have access to the source code for your app. So you can create a Git repo just for secrets, or you can keep it in the Fleet infra repo, like we've got our Fleet repo for all of our cluster stuff. That's a reasonable place to keep it, but it's encrypted. So it's not open access for everyone who has access to that repo.
Yeah, I know here, Azure has Key Vault, and part of Key Vault is, yes, it stores your secrets, but the bigger part of Key Vault is the governance that you can put on a Key Vault that controls exactly who and when and how people can even access the secrets, so that it's not just your ability to access the Key Vault. Similar question here, I think, couldn't the env files be combined? I think this was from earlier in the demo, and use an env var.
It's a good question. Yeah, so you can have a difference between your environments, and sometimes those differences are desirable, right? So I said there was a problem with our first example. Well, there's a problem with this example too. We still don't have ingress. We don't have any way other than this Tailscale network that I'm connected to actually get traffic to these environments. We don't have monitoring from Prometheus. So we can't fuel our horizontal pod autoscaler. We don't have metrics. There's here we can see in the details about this. There's actually something that's not ready in here. Horizontal pod autoscaler for these deployments is not ready because we don't have a metric server. And that's okay in this environment, because really the point was to just show the progression from one environment to the next. We don't need all that for a simple demo of releasing. But if we had another 30 minutes or 40 minutes, we could build an environment where we do have Flagger for canaries, and we could see a fraction of the traffic going to our new release before the cutover actually sends all traffic to that release. And Flagger monitors those metrics from Prometheus to see how are things going. Do we need more? Well, Flagger doesn't decide that. That's what the horizontal pod autoscaler does. But you see, the metrics are used for different purposes. And all of these details, most app developers probably don't care about any of this, right? That's why you have an ops team, to support those details. So the point of this demo is really to show as we build these templates out, you can hand them to your app developer teams and make them instantly productive with all the bells and whistles.
Well, this is, I mean, this has been great for me. I feel like I finally have not a full understanding, but a much better understanding, one of what GitOps is, but also, I mean, how fortunate you are as an app developer if you get to live inside of an environment where things are this automated, right? Or the fact that you can automate things to this degree is quite fascinating. All right. We are kind of coming up on time here. Chat, if you've got any other questions, it's a good time to get them in now. But Kingdon and Juozas, if you're okay, we'll move into our last part, lightning round. You good with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, outstanding. All right. This has nothing to do with GitOps at all, but the most important part of the stream. First of all, Kingdon, if we all want a dope hat like that, where can we get it?
I got this on woot.com. I don't know when you'll be able to
get
it.
No! One day, you're still using Woot.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Wow. I haven't done that in years. I remember when I was like 25, somebody showed it to me, and I checked it every day. Every day. Y'all using Woot? Chat? Put a one in the comments if you're using Woot. Okay, next question. Juozas. This is important. Tabs or spaces?
It depends.
Oh,
there's a space and tab for each file. That's the right choice.
Make files. You need tabs. I wouldn't use tabs basically any other place, but maybe there's a place.
Package
okay. So
tabs.
That's the first it depends that I've gotten. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, next question. We'll try to use some more DevOps questions. XML or YAML?
YAML. Please. XML is, you can get lost in it for days just trying to read the file.
Java bytecode.
We have a friend here, Bruno Borges. I don't know if y'all know him. He works on Java, but he's a huge fan of XML over YAML. We'll have to talk to him and figure out. We'll have him on and figure out what the deal is there. Let's see. Types or no types?
For JavaScript or for what?
Yeah, I mean, just typed languages or strongly typed or no types.
As a Rubyist, I'm extremely excited about types. I'm still not using them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Does Ruby have types now?
Ruby has types. Yeah, they're in Ruby 3. I think. I don't know. I'm not using them.
So does this implicitly answer the question then, if we've added types to JavaScript and we've added types to Ruby and we've added types to Python, is it possible that everybody really just wants types after all in the end?
If I don't plug my WASM talks that are coming up at the Open Source Summit, I'm making a huge mistake right now because it's all about type safety. That's what it's for. It's all about type safety and runtime performance and cold start performance.
Okay, so check out Kingdon at the Open Source Summit talking about WASM. Very cool. Juozas, types?
I agree with Jorge in the chat because I've really grown to TypeScript. Used to think is complex, but it helps when you go along with it and kind of let it help you instead of rule you. Then it's good.
I agree with Richard. For years, kind of made the tabs versus spaces argument moot, right? Like somebody decide for me. I don't care. Just figure it out. All right, folks, where can everybody go? What should they do now? If they've seen this and they're like, I got to have more of that in my life, what do they need to do?
Well, you need to download Weave GitOps open source, and you need to download the VS Code extension, VS Code GitOps tools. That is, let's see, which URL is this? GitOps for Flux must be the GitOps tools.
It must be something that Tamao gave us the other day. Hopefully it points to the right place. So we had to make that link.
GitOps for Flux. Yes, that's the marketplace for the VS Code extension. And GitOps CLI is where you'll find the template feature. There's a GitOps Enterprise CLI. So there's full transparency. We have to let you know that template feature that we showed is part of Weave GitOps Enterprise. You can download the Weave GitOps Enterprise CLI to get your hands on it and try out that specific template feature. It will work if you use it manually, but in order to pull the templates from the cluster, you will need Weave GitOps Enterprise at this point. So we mentioned that there's some open sourcing discussion going on, and we're perpetually looking for things in our enterprise product that we can open source to make everyone more aware of Weaveworks and more aware of Flux. And that's certainly something that's on the table, but there'll probably be more other things that we'll see open source first, like the Flagger dashboard. And there are a lot of features that you can read about and use in our Weave GitOps Enterprise docs without actually purchasing the enterprise product itself. Like Cluster API is all open source. All of the things that we showed are based on open source. So the specific feature that we showed today is a little bit difficult for people to use out of the box right now, but we're working on that and making it more accessible so that more people can adopt it, right? It's a templating tool. There are other templating tools you can use that are open source. Helm, and Customize, Q, lots of different templating tools, and a lot of them have great support in VS Code. So if you haven't tried templating as an approach, definitely take a look at Weave GitOps.
Absolutely. All right. So folks, check out the GitOps extension of VS Code. Check out Weaveworks, and what was the one you said there was called Weave GitOps. Weave GitOps. Check out Weave GitOps, and then there we go, right there. And then come back here next Thursday. Check out Rory showing you how to make accessible apps using Copilot to do that with the help of AI, because we can't do anything anymore without AI, right, folks? Right? That's the new way to do AI. We're gonna do everything. No, okay, most things, some things. Thank you, Kingdon and Juozas, for being with us today. Chat, we will see you back here next week, and I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for hosting.
Yeah, thank you.